any business that's dealing with suppliers and distribution, will benefit from having everything in one place, from automating, the grading of suppliers, for allowing them to see in one place where they're at with their suppliers, and for the suppliers themselves to log into a platform and insert all that information.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study series. On this episode today, we have Laurent Altier, who is the Business and Account Development Director at Safety Chain Software. With a robust background in driving new market development and fostering client relationships, Laurent has significantly contributed to the growth and innovation at Safety Chain, which is a leading digital productivity, compliance, and quality company, and spans across various industries. And I'm really excited to have him on to explore how he is kind of gathering and interpreting data for manufacturing and plant management. But before we dive into all of that, first, welcome to the show, Laurent.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So I'd love to get kind of a Coles Notes version of your history, where you came from, how you kind of landed here at Safety Chain before we get into too much stuff.
So I've had a very diverse background. I started in publishing, in the fashion industry in New York City. From there, I moved into the restaurant business, managing bistros and music venues and whatnot. Then I started representing liquor brands that were implementing themselves in the United States. So helping new gin brand from Cognac, pierce to the Northeast, and was pretty successful at that. It was called Generous Gin. And that led me to work a little more into process sales. So figuring out how I could get myself into technology and ideally SaaS to really have a longer sales process that allows me to really explore a little further how the prospect is working things presently and how they aim at doing things in the future, and really be that crucial element to get them there. I didn't think I would manage to find a job like that this fast, but COVID hit, and was pretty lucky there to have the opportunity to get onto a program called FlogJ that allowed me in 10 weeks to get into selling software. And from there, I got into Safety Chain and, saw the company grow and helped grow a sales force that, aims to pierce through new markets and help process manufacturers be more efficient and produce more efficiently with less waste.
Wow, yeah, that is a very diverse background. There's a lot of different industries and experiences from those industries. And I wonder, Laurent, could you share a little bit about how that shaped your approach with your business development at Safety Chain?
So essentially, what differentiates us from robots and machines is really that interrelational capabilities that we have, emotional intelligence. So I think that once I started focusing on that quality as opposed to hard skills or knowledge or whatnot, that really gave me the confidence to sit down and say, hey, like, I'm willing to learn about this entire technology and how things work, and what matters is the relationships that I'm going to help you build.
Yeah, I get a sense that that's important to you and to the industry. I'm noticing a trend that I'm kind of fondly referring to as rehumanizing,
Yeah,
because we've spent a great deal of time automating and introducing new technologies. And, in that, some businesses I've noticed have forgotten the human element, the fact that there is a human being on the other side of that marketing message that's going to be interacting with the business. And that sounds like it's important to you.
absolutely. And I think it would be a mistake not to see AI and all these developments in technology as tools as opposed to things of their own. And what it does is really allow us to focus on what matters and what's essentially fun and the good part of the job, which is relationships, which is communication, which is brainstorming, team building. So that's essentially in a nutshell what I think technology is taking us towards as a new workforce. So the software I sell, for instance, is really reinforcing and empowering operators on the plant floor, giving them the tools to know when they're doing a good job, know when they're not, and empower them in taking charge and less oversight. Just so it's a mistake to think that machines will replace humans. I believe it's maybe going to restructure things, but it's not gonna drastically replace.
I think about all the times loosely using this term technology has kind of changed the trajectory of the human experience. Initially the plowing of fields and then the introduction of the assembly line. And as we continue to develop these things, uh, there's a huge learning curve. There's a lot of information out there to take in, to understand, to deploy a tool properly. And I think about how we used to plow fields with horses and oxen, and now it's GPS driven $4 million like combine systems that hardly need a human being at the helm to do their job properly, but they still need a human. And I'm so fascinated how there is a fear that we'll replace humans, but then it just becomes, oh, actually, we need more humans to use this new tool.
Right, right, that's true. And we need humans I mean, to prompt the machines, to maintain them, we'll still need folks I mean, to manage, to oversee, I mean, machines don't really care about making money, right? So, yeah, so there'll always be an element of human interface, but essentially, what we're looking to accomplish we focus a lot on the food and beverage industry. That's where we really started, and in an ideal world, we're not wasting so much food, so much products, and that goes for any industry that transforms things. So I think there's a lot to gain there, and really focus on that element, and that's how we really engage with our prospects before, of course, going into ROIs and how all these savings will turn into financial gains. But in a nutshell, it's really giving the guarantee to a pet food company that the pet food they're going to release won't be recalled, which beyond the financial impact is just a giant pile of waste. Right?
Right.
And when you think of the entire supply chain, the entire production line, and the workforce, like they say that a recall costs about 50 times the cost of making the product, which can put a company out of business in a heartbeat if they're not prepared. So yeah, that's really the objective of technology. It's not really, I think, to replace, but to improve and make us do what we like to do for longer.
Right. At the before the cameras started rolling, we were talking about your role in the data and the collection and interpretation of that data. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like for the way that you
Of
serve
course,
your clients?
of course. So let's take a trip back in time to, I don't know, let's say the 80s. So you're producing, I don't know, let's say frozen chicken, right? So you have your quality managers overseeing operators. All the notes are taken on paper, right? So they have notebooks and they're checking for every batch. Okay, this is the cooking temperature. This is the cooked temperature. Checking inside the chicken, and okay, we're gonna freeze it, and it's freezing at that temperature. And by the time this data is getting to the actual manager, it's hours already that have passed. So when they spot a mistake in the process, like a discrepancy in the temperatures, or I'm not even talking about human mistakes because that's another thing. But bottom line is, when they spot there is a problem, it takes you know hours of wasted products basically before they can correct. And for something like food, you cannot just put it back in the machine and, oh, okay, we'll start over. It's not like a metal that you melt and, okay, it's not the right shape. We'll just melt it again. But even that, then you're losing time. So there's always a loss essentially
Right.
because of that lapse in time. So what we do is we show up and we give them that information in real time, on iPads or screens, whatever on dashboards with the ability to customize them. So maybe a plant operator on the floor, he'll want to see how he's performing, in real time. He'll want to see, that like a scale, and it's going to show him, okay, like, temperature is right where you want it to be, right? And if it gets out of spec, too high or too low, boom, there's a bell that rings, corrects the problem right away. No wasted product or minimal. Now, on the manager or the president's point of view, he gets to log in on his computer and see the KPIs that matter to him. So, how much product came out the line today? How much waste did we generate today? So, all the information that's relevant to them in real time. Auditor shows up from the FDA or USDA, the United States. Boom, they can have all that information within minutes. So back in the 80s, an auditor shows up and asks them for information from 2 months ago at that given time. It's going to take them hours, even potentially days to get that information. Sipping through, piles and tons of paper, and add to that possible human mistakes, and get fined by the FGA. I mean, you name it. So those are all the problems that we solve. So, it would be easy to think that, oh, okay, we're gonna show up and, oh yeah, like this is it. We're replacing folks, and these are folks that are going to be out of jobs. Absolutely not. We're allowing those folks to actually do a better job and know when they're not, and know, they don't have to to yell that like, at the end of the week because there's a problem on Tuesday. Like they can fix a problem as it arises because they know and they can see it. And there's accountability there. So those are the things that we solve.
So I imagine there's a limited set of businesses that you can serve with something like that. And being the case, I wonder how difficult it might be to find and connect with the right people to kind of build those relationships or acquire those new clients. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your efforts in that area?
So uh, my example was really focused on food manufacturing, but
Sure.
you could apply this to absolutely, I mean, anything that involves a process that deals with manufacturing and regulations, right? So since we have what we call a supplier management system, right? So any business that's dealing with suppliers and distribution, will benefit from having everything in one place, from automating, the grading of suppliers, for allowing them to see in one place where they're at with their suppliers, and for the suppliers themselves to log into a platform and insert all that information autonomously and not have to deal with the number of suppliers time 4 emails, and hundreds of emails to deal with. So that it can be really applied to any business that has this type of regulatory process that they're submitted to.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So it's a bit of a wider audience, um, and so reaching them and connecting with them and kind of catching their attention. What are you doing differently than the others out there that are playing in the same space?
Sure. So some of our competitors are on the road a lot and, kind of physically go and show. And I mean, it definitely works for them. There's, I won't be judging, but we have a more digital approach, a remote approach, and very strong investment in marketing. So a lot of what we do is email campaigns. We produce a lot. What works is we produce a lot of content, so webinars and infographics and whatnot that educate our audience on different changes within the regulatory sphere. So for food, for instance, so what's new this year? What are you going to need to change within your process? And how would software make that a piece of cake? That's in a nutshell what we do. So
Right.
through educating our market with free information on stuff they're gonna have to do, then it's a good way for us to filter out the ones that are already armed with systems or the ones that are still using, sticks and stones.
There's a shift in the way that we do marketing, I think across the board, that I have kind of observed. And it used to be that you could you'd name your company with the letter A so you show up in the phone book before everybody else. And that was
Right.
there's all these like little tricks that you would see kind of evolve out of the landscape of how we communicate with people. And the more I have been in this space, the more I have recognized the role of education and community building and nurturing of potential clients. Does that pose any challenge for you guys in terms of keeping track of and managing those communities? And if it doesn't, I'm curious to find out how you overcame that because I'm sure that there's somebody out there that is also dealing with an abundance of people in their audience that would be curious to know what to do in that space.
I mean, no, it's gonna sound a bit, bit dull, but yeah, just staying organized and really optimizing the systems you have at your disposal as best you can, and getting creative into ways to group and connect, and entertain relationships. So, but I'm not sure if your question is really in regards to the actual organization, the data of the like the load of connections and folks within your network. Is that or how you maintain that connection? So
Well, I think actually it's a little bit of both. I know for a lot of businesses, lead management is a very difficult thing.
yes,
It's
of course.
having you because you have so many contacts. There's all these conversations happening all over the place. Right? You could have a LinkedIn messaging string going on
Yeah,
with one guy, another one on Instagram. Somebody's emailing you, texting, and it's just a lot of touch points and a lot of chaos. And it seems to me that you have found some peace inside of that chaos. And I'm curious to know more about how you have accomplished that.
sure. So there's different elements there. I mean, first of all, in an ideal world, everyone is coming to you for the content, which folks are. A lot of are coming to your website or actively engaging, like waiting for emails and kind of like you would a newsletter that you actually read, as opposed to one you don't read, right? One that goes to your spam, because you care about it, and one that's you read every morning. So there's that element too. It's really so you need to have good content and you need to bring actual information that is going to be worth their time. So that's given. Then it's having good and accurate information on your database, and that can be a tricky part because the source of truth that you're referring to is inaccurate. So there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it unless you actually spend the time to dig and do your small investigation and uncover the actual correct data. So that's also an issue. But once you've got a good system in place that you trust the information that you have, and you can gauge that by the rate of engagement. So it's always a work in progress, and it's always an improvement. But yeah, I feel like after a few years of figuring out how to best organize your leads. That's usually something that you should be confident about. And then maintaining that engagement, that's where it gets a bit more creative. It's you know figuring out and organizing your groups within niche markets and really tapping into that educational information to give them, but on things that are very specific, right? So
Mm.
you're looking at a problem that only a few companies will be dealing with, and that's because you want to really tap into these companies. So it's a lot of creative work, which is interesting, especially when you start working with content and content generation, um, hosting webinars. So we do plan tours as well. So things you can promote and really build value around.
Right. Yeah. From the bird's eye view, it's uh educational content with utility, nurturing the group of people who are interested in that, the engaged members of those audience. But it's so interesting to me too how um 80% of the rewards are going to come from 20% of your efforts. And you touched on that at the very end, how there's actually just a very select, specific group of people that we're trying to continually
Yeah.
communicate with to keep moving the needle forward with them. And I think that that's a really powerful strategy in terms of um, developing the business and those relationships. As things continue to evolve for you, I wonder, um, is there room in the work that you're doing for AI and automations in terms of the way that you manage those clients? And if so, is that something you guys are developing inside, like internally, or are you kind of seeking opportunities from partnerships?
So it's funny you ask that question because that's really something that's top of mind at the moment when it comes to business development outreach, that we do and are trying to improve. So that's actually a big question because, in my opinion, as we discussed earlier, that human element is so crucial that some things cannot be automated. It's
Right.
you're looking unless you're selling a product that is one size fits all, which is great. In that case, well, by all means. But what we do is so specific that we can automate certain things. We are using AI when it comes to, for instance, transcribing calls, note taking, task generations, automated responses. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you can utilize AI. But when it comes to the actual outreach, when someone wants to get in touch with you, wants to get in contact, you can respond with a machine. But I personally don't think it's setting a high standard. I think it's really disregarding the how we value the customer and the prospected customer especially.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's so funny. I I have a company that I like buy domains and stuff from, and they also offer hosting and all the tools that I need to
Sure.
maybe build a website for a client or something like that. And so uh, I used them for a really long time, and I found a better deal somewhere else, went over to somewhere else, and the first thing that I noticed was I can't get in touch with anybody to solve any problem that I have, and it takes weeks for support to get around
Oh
to you
yeah.
because you're not paying their priority subscription or whatever
Yeah.
the nonsense is. So it's such a refreshing thing to hear that it is important still to keep that human element.
But I take it with a grain of salt. So because what I said is great if you have like a human to actually respond or actually call the individual that's reached out because he wants to demo or he wants to know pricings.
Yeah.
It's great if you have someone that's making that call, that's getting in touch like within the hour, ideally, or even the day of. But it's really sad when you see that some of them just got left out. There was, you know, and so I do believe in that like kind of redundant system in which machines are integrated as a backup.
Hmm.
That makes absolute sense, and I'm actually working on putting it together. But that's only that's only good as a backup, and that should only be kind of like a like a digital concierge almost. Like, hey, I saw that you asked to get in touch. Like, when's a good time? When can we accommodate this for you to meet,
Oh,
John or Mr. Hangog or whatnot, and then it makes sense, but not if you don't have to.
not on the front lines, but
Yeah,
there's a blend that you could create of a best of both worlds scenario that is useful, I think in the long term. That's such a good point. So to kind of we're reaching the end of our time here, and I'd love to kind of wrap things up on a high note. So for safety chain, what's on the horizon? What are you guys aiming at? What's some of the goals? What's the big picture stuff that you're headed towards?
well, just getting into more and more production facilities. We're in over 2,500 facilities now, and looking to expand and become the market leader here in the United States, and ideally expand to other countries.
Big goals. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
one last one here, and this one's going to be a little bit off the chain here, but if you had a piece of advice that you could offer somebody in a similar role as you, as it relates to kind of exploring some of these ideas that we've discussed in this conversation, what would that piece of advice be, Laurent?
It would be to embrace change and really seek out change, because things are moving so fast out there, and it's important to try new things and to stay flexible. And change is where it all starts.
Especially in an industry or in a space that's evolving so quickly. Yeah,
Absolutely.
being
Yep.
open to change is very sound advice. Um, Laurent, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, how would one go about doing that?
Sure. It's Laurent Altier. That's Laurentier. And you can find me on LinkedIn. We'll take it from there.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. As for me and my team, if you want to get in touch with us, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I'll see you in the next.